Welcome to this explainer. You know, right now, at this exact second as you're watching this, billions of invisible text messages are flying all across your body. It's wild to think about, but the cells inside you aren't just sitting there in isolation. They're actually constantly talking to each other, acting like this massive, incredibly complex telecommunications network. Every single time your heart beats, every time you heal from a tiny scratch, even every time you think a thought, you are relying on this invisible cellular internet. So how exactly are they pulling this off? Well, let's find out.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to hit 6 key areas. First, how cells talk. Second, senders and receivers. Third, local and long-distance messages. Fourth, inside the cell. Fifth, network breakdowns. And finally, hacking the network. Let's just dive right in.
All right, starting with Section 1, how cells talk. Let's look at why this tiny microscopic chatter is absolutely essential for coordinating everything from your physical growth to your metabolism to your immune system.
So, cell communication, which is often called cell signaling, it isn't just random biological noise. It's this highly precise process where cells detect, transmit, and respond to chemical or physical signals from around them. And the ultimate goal of all this frantic networking? Homeostasis. It's all about keeping things in perfect balance. Our cells aren't just static Lego bricks. They're super dynamic, active participants constantly sending and receiving data to keep your organs running smoothly and adapting to a totally unpredictable environment.
Honestly, it helps to think of it exactly like a biological postal service. The whole sequence really comes down to 4 distinct steps. Step 1, a signal is sent. Step 2, that signal is successfully received at the destination. Step 3, it undergoes what we call signal transduction, which just means the message gets relayed internally through the cell. And finally, Step 4, the cell executes a specific response. It might move, it might divide, or it might even trigger programmed cell death.
Moving on to Section 2, senders, receivers, and signals. We know the 4-step sequence now, but what exactly is the physical hardware running this biological network?
First up, meet the ligands. These are essentially the literal biological text messages of your body. They're molecular information carriers traveling between cells to deliver absolute must-know instructions, and they come in a few different flavors, depending on the department they belong to. You've got hormones like insulin regulating your blood sugar, growth factors rushing in to help repair tissue, cytokines sounding a massive alarm for your immune system, and neurotransmitters firing away inside your brain.
But look, a message is completely useless if you don't have an inbox, right? Now, some messages just knock right at the cell membrane door because they literally can't get inside. They have to use surface structures like G-protein-coupled receptors, we just call them GPCRs, to pass their message inward. But on the flip side, certain molecules, like steroid and thyroid hormones, they've got VIP access. They just slip right through that outer membrane directly to intracellular receptors that are waiting for them in the cytoplasm or the nucleus.
Which brings us to Section 3, local and long-distance messages. Let's see how these different signals actually commute to their destinations. Just like our tech, cells have different bandwidths for different needs. Endocrine signaling is kind of like a global cellular radio broadcast, like your pancreas just dumping insulin straight into the bloodstream to regulate blood sugar everywhere at once. Paracrine signaling, though, is much more like a local Bluetooth connection, used by growth factors when you have a localized cut that needs healing. Then there's autocrine signaling. This is wild. It's where a cell, like a T cell, literally leaves a message for itself to stimulate its own growth. We also have juxtacrine signaling, which requires actual physical cell-to-cell contact, and synaptic signaling, which flashes across those incredibly tiny gaps between your neurons.
Sometimes, though, even that local mail system just isn't fast enough. So cells can bypass the fluid messaging system entirely by using direct physical wire connections. In animal cells, we have gap junctions. These allow for the rapid passage of ions so that cells, like the ones in your cardiac muscle, can contract in absolute perfect unison. Plant cells use a very similar hardwired setup called plasmodesmata to seamlessly shuttle nutrients and signals back and forth.
All right, Section 4, inside the cell. The text message has successfully arrived at the cell. Great. But how does it actually get routed to the right internal department?
This pulls us right back to Step 3 from earlier, signal transduction. Once a receptor binds to its ligand, it acts as an internal router. It kicks off these incredibly complex molecular relay races with intense-sounding names. We're talking the JAK STAT pathway, the WNT/beta-catenin pathway, or RTK signaling. Now, you totally don't need to memorize that alphabet soup. But what you do need to know is that these intricate relay races ultimately regulate huge cellular shifts, like turning genes on and off or triggering cell division.
And to make sure that initial message is heard loud and clear inside the super noisy, crowded environment of the cell, the signal often needs a megaphone. Enter the second messengers. Small molecules like CAMP or calcium ions literally act as cellular megaphones. They flood into an intracellular space to trigger an immediate physical response, like a muscle contraction or a secretion. Basically, they amplify that original external signal so heavily that the cell cannot possibly ignore it.
Next up is Section 5, when communication breaks down. We have to ask, what happens when this perfectly timed cellular internet gets a glitch, or worse, goes completely offline?
Honestly, when signaling goes wrong, the results are pretty devastating. In cancer, for example, a genetic mutation causes a relentless grow and divide signal to get stuck in the on position, leading to uncontrolled tumors. In diabetes, it's basically a dropped call. The insulin message is sent out, but the signal for glucose uptake is completely impaired. Autoimmune diseases happen when abnormal cytokine signals trigger friendly fire, causing your body to attack its own healthy tissues. And in neurological disorders like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, that crucial synaptic communication between neurons tragically breaks down.
Now for Section 6, hacking the cellular network. I know those breakdowns sound incredibly daunting, but here is where the story gets truly inspiring. By deeply understanding these exact pathways, biotechnology has completely transformed modern medicine. Today's drug development doesn't just sit back and watch this network, it intercepts it. We can now deploy incredible tools like EGFR inhibitors to effectively block those abnormal, stuck cancer signals we just talked about. And in regenerative medicine, we are literally using highly specific growth factor signals to guide stem cells and physically regenerate damaged tissue. It's honestly like science fiction coming to life. To actually pull this off, researchers have developed a massive arsenal of laboratory tools. Things like Western blotting, flow cytometry, and single-cell RNA sequencing. These are essentially brilliant ways of wiretapping the cells. Using these methods, scientists can isolate signaling proteins, watch the communication pathways light up in real time under fluorescence microscopy, and decode the exact biological conversations happening at a microscopic level. And this brings us to the absolute cutting edge of the field. Today, we're using AI-assisted network analysis to map out cellular signaling in ways human researchers never could on their own. We're building full 3D organoid disease models to test precisely how tissues talk to each other in a disease state. We are even giving our own immune cells a literal software update so they can better recognize and destroy threats like cancer.
So, as we step fully into this new era of synthetic biology, I want to leave you with a question. What happens when we can perfectly program our own cellular code? If we can truly master our internal telecommunications network, we aren't just curing disease anymore. We are redefining human limits. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And remember, never stop questioning the microscopic world that makes you, you.